Hi Alexa, Fabiola here. I'm going to do some critiquing of your design that you sent to us. You can see that I've opened up your design in the EMB version of it in my Hatch digitizing program. And this is exactly how it looks when you sent it to us and when I opened it up. And I could see some things on it right away that I think really need some improvement before you're going to get a good stitch out here. First of all, though, I do want to compliment you and your husband on your logo. I think it's a really nice looking logo and certainly worthy of you digitizing this and digitizing it well so that you can use it with your business. So what you see on the screen is you can see that you've got your background image here. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm selecting it and I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to hide it so that we can just look at the embroidery elements that you've created here. And when I look at your design, I can see that you've got a problem with a couple of different things. One of the main ones that to me is really, really obvious is that you've got different kinds of stitch angles going on here in your actual letters of the word Manisoft. That needs to be worked on. The other thing is it appears to me that this part of the word soft is a little bit smaller in size than what this part here is. So I'm going to have a suggestion for you on how to fix that. The other thing that I see here that we're going to take a look at is your stitch right here. The bottom part of these letters M don't line up with the bottom part of this letter M here on the red one here. So I'm going to pop in a guideline so that we can just actually look at that a little bit clearer and you can see what I'm talking about. Hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to change my background color to white and I'm going to change my guideline to a bright pink so that they show up a little bit better. I'm also going to hide the grid for right now. All right, so see this? I just drew in that guideline here, and you can see that the bottom of your blue satin lines here are right on the line, and your red is up above it. So that means that you do need to either drag this part down so that it does end up here. One of the things about stitching logos and that kind of makes fine-tuning this really, really important also in this practice stitch out is that push and pull compensation. So these stitches right here are in the horizontal position, which means that they're going to actually push out as they're stitching out, which means that possibly what's going to happen here is that the spacing in between the bottom of this letter M and the top of your word Manisoft might possibly get decreased a little bit. So you might have to work on the spacing on that after you do a practice stitch out. And this A is definitely going to have to come on down, or these are going to have to go up in order to match up with the bottom of these. You want all of these to line up together on the bottom because they're all horizontal stitch lines here. That push compensation is going to happen at the bottom of all of these letters. So line them all up, okay? Same thing up here at the top. I'm going to put in a guideline here, drag it down to the top of the letter A. So this is going to pull in because it is a diagonal stitch that's stitching out in that direction. This one here is going to push out a little bit, but I'm not sure that when all is said and done that these are not going to need a little bit of also some compensating there. So what I've done is I've selected that part of the green and I'm just nudging it up with the keyboard arrow just to kind of match it up a little bit. So keep an eye on that. That's going to make a difference in your final stitch out, okay? The other thing I want to talk about while we're here in this is about your fabric type. Now I can see that you chose pure cotton and that's just going to be the default in this program. But if you are going to be stitching this logo out on a different kind of fabric, that might not be the choice that you want. So under design settings, under auto fabric, click on this list and you've got a choice of lots of different kinds of fabrics that you can digitize your logo for. I'm just going to use the example of you might possibly want to be stitching this out on denim, maybe denim jackets and denim caps and that kind of thing. So choose your fabric according because the underlay and the stitch spacing and all kinds of other things are going to be built into the properties of these different kinds of fabrics and you're going to get better digitized objects. Maybe you want stretch knit because possibly you're going to be stitching this out on some polo shirts and t-shirts and that kind of thing. So choose your fabric according to what it is that you're going to be making this logo to be stitched out on, okay? It will make a difference. So the other thing right here while we're up in this upper section of your design is I see that you chose a satin stitch. I love satin stitches. However, they don't always work out the best when you're stitching these things out on garments. And I've selected the A, and what I'm going to have you take a look at here is the stitch length here of your satin stitches. So I'm selecting M on my keyboard. My little ruler comes up, and I can see if I measure across here that you, let's see, you are about 5.33 millimeters across. That's not terribly wide for a garment. Your maximum would be 7 millimeters wide for any satin stitch. What you want to try to avoid is any kind of snagging that might occur because satin stitches are rather loose. And if this is going to be a garment that's going to be used heavily, washed a lot, anything like that, you're not going to want to have a satin stitch here that's really wide because it's not going to wear well and you will possibly get it snagged. So you might want to change these objects into weave fills and rather than a satin fill. All right. And then the other thing that I'm looking at your word Manisoft here. And what I see happening is that the letters of the word are not all the same size. So and the other thing about it is that you've got some different crazy stitch angles going on. So your letter M here, some of these are at little angles, and then your letter A got an angle going on there, but a different one going on over here, etc., etc. Letter F looks terrible. So this is what I'm going to tell you. You know, if I select your M, and it's turned on. I'm going to click on the lettering tab. What I've noticed here, and this is something that both Jersey Dude and I tried to talk to you about in different email messages, this is a true type font. It's not a pre-digitized font. So this is what we were trying to explain in the messages. Everything that comes up first of all in the list with this little red zigzag next to it are fonts that are pre-digitized, and so they are already created as nicely digitized objects. If you scroll down on the list and you start getting into your true type fonts are all the fonts that you have built into your computer. All right, so there can be many, 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 depending on how many different kinds of fonts you have. Yes, they will come up in this list as something that can be turned into a digitized object, but they have not yet been digitized. And so what the problem is with them is it's not that they can't be used, because obviously they can be. It's just that you're going to have to do some work to them in order to make them stitch out nicely. And you did comment on that in your email messages that some of your start and stop points weren't good and you were getting some funny jumps and that kind of thing. Well, that's because, like I said, they have not yet been digitized professionally. And so you're going to get some funny stuff going on. So the first thing that I would have suggested actually is that you could work on each one of these letters individually, and I'll show you how to do that. But because I'm noticing also that they're different sizes, and I can look over here in the object bar, the sequence bar, I can see that you digitize them as separate pieces. So this is what my suggestion would be, Alexa, is that you would turn on your lettering tool tab again, and even if you wanted to use this Calibri font again, let's just, first of all, before I do that, I'm going to measure and see how tall you actually made these. So I've turned on, oh wow, didn't expect that to happen. I wasn't completely cleared out of there. I'm turning on my M, and basically your lettering here is about 8.6, let's just say about 8.5 millimeters tall. That's pretty small, by the way. So one of the there's a couple of different fonts that are built into our program that you might want to choose rather than your Calibri here. But let's just go with what you chose. Okay, lettering. Let's take our selection down into the true type fonts. Calibri is actually one of my very favorites. Let's see where it's at here. I use it a lot just on regular documents. Keep them going. Where is Calibri? There we go. So I've selected it, and I'm going to type in the text of Manisoft. I'm going to keep it all as one word, capital Anisoft, and I'm going to select enter, and you can see that it's right there on the screen already. So what happens here, I'm going to change the size to the 8.5 here in the height. All right, so there I have it all as one word, right? I can see that it did, if I compare my letter F with your letter F, it looks very similar. The T looks really similar. If I zoom in on them, I'm going to see that, it's got the crossbar of the T underneath the upright part of the T both times. I don't like that. I would work on that a little bit. But what I did by typing in the whole word is that I got all my letters to be of equal size, okay, rather than yours, which are obviously not all the same size. So let's just say, you did recolor them because this is obviously how your logo looks. So as it is selected, just come over into your Edit Object toolbar and break this apart. And what you're going to see over here in the sequence bar is that all the letters are their own separate. So what I can do is I can select a letter M. I can turn that into the bright green. Your A is a red. Your N and I are black. So let's turn them black. And then your SOFT is blue. And it looks like it's that bright blue over there. All right, so there you go. So that's how I've recolored it. That's how they're all the same size. The other thing that you probably would want to do with all of these is space them out a little bit. Let's weld those together. And then let's space them. So under, probably what we should have done is actually if you wanted to adjust that spacing on them, that should have been done first. So excuse me for that. Let's escape. Let's just do some undo. All right, so now I've got Manisoft all as one word. I'm going to select it, and under lettering, let's just come down here to, let's see which toolbar it is here. I think I can even just, oh, I know what I can do. Under reshape, that's what I need to do. When you select reshape, you're going to be able to drag each one of these letters apart, and get the spacing that you want. All right, so where am I dragging on? If I zoom in, each one of these letters has a little pink diamond shape in the middle. So that's all I'm doing is just putting my mouse on top of that and just moving these letters over. Okay, so that's how you're going to get your spacing that you want. And like I said, that should have been done before I broke these apart to try to work on them individually. All right, so that's how you're going to work on your spacing. I'm not going to do all of them. But the next thing that we're going to do is back to how we recolored them. So hit your escape key to get out of that reshape button for now. And then you can recolor them. All right, just like we did a while ago. So you'd right click on it, you would come to break it apart, and then once they're broken apart, then you're going to be able to change the colors. Now, once they're also different objects like this, let's look at changing some of the stitch angles. Letter M, like I said a while ago, I think that really needs some work because these stitch angles are all crazy. And the letter A, so maybe A would be a good one to take a look at first. Let's turn off the true view and take a look at these stitches. Obviously, we would want these legs to match one another. So let's turn on our reshape button. And where is, I think the angle is actually going to be down at the bottom. So we're not going to want to do it by changing angles. What we're going to want to do is use this wonderful little tool in Edit Objects that's called Add Stitch Angles. All right, so once Add Stitch Angles is turned on, I can draw by clicking with my mouse the stitch angle that I want on this object here. So if I select my Enter key, let's look at it in True View. See how much better that looks? I think it looks better. You can do that with each one of these parts of the design. All right, and again, I'm not going to do them all for you. Over here on the T, now that letter really needs some work because if this was mine, I would definitely want the crossbar of the T to be underneath or on top of this upright part of the T. How am I going to fix that? I'm going to select the T and I am going to break this one apart also. So now on the toolbar over here, you're going to see that the T is now two different pieces. Can you see that? Here's the upright and there is the crossbar. So when I did that, isn't it interesting that it actually changed it for me? But this is the other thing I want you to notice. You were talking about how you were getting all kinds of funny jumps. So part of your design would stitch out and then the thread would cut and it would jump up to finish the next part of the design. Let's look at our reshape on this particular object. All right, so here's our crossbar. You see that this is your starting point of the T. This is where it ended down here with the cross. Now that's why you're going to get a jump from here to here. So here's this one, and it's going to jump from here up to here where the cross, the top part is starting to stitch over here. So this is what I would do. I would select this one. I would move my ending point up to the top. And then on this section here, I would move my starting point right on top of where the other one ended. All right, so what happened there is I just resequenced that a little bit so that I'm not going to get that cut off and that tie in and tie off. All right, so you're going to get a nicer stitch out here with that letter T. So just take a look at all of the letters, keeping that in mind. Fix all of those stitch angles by either selecting them. And see, this is all one object right now, and so it's going to be determined by how it's all one object. You could take this apart so that you could fix those pieces. You might want to have to change your tie-ins and tie-offs. I can see that you probably would. And just do some work on it. So that was one of the reasons why we were trying to caution you about using true type fonts. Anyway, just keep working on your design. You've got a good start on it, and I think that you're going to get good results just with a little bit more work. So this is Fabiola. Thanks for watching the video, and I hope what I had to say about your design is going to be helpful.